Our planet Earth, a world of mystery and imagination, science and wonder that is constantly being gazed upon and unraveled by the finest minds humanity has to offer. Welcome to the UNIVI podcast, the show that presents the free-flowing conversation with those beings at the very center of the world of academia and research from all around the globe, with your host, Simon Holland.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the UNIVI podcast. I'm your host, Simon Holland. On this episode, we chat about the weird and mysterious creatures of the sea with Dr. Tracey Sutton, who is an associate professor at the Oceanographic Center in the College of Oceanography at Nova Southeastern University. Dr. Sutton's research focuses on the ecology of the marine systems, particularly those from the open ocean, with emphasis on the fauna and ecology of the deep-pelagic zone by combining observational, organismal, and theoretical approaches to help understand the Earth's largest but least known ecosystems. He has worked with organisations such as NOAA and the BBC in consulting roles and is the principal investigator and consortium director of DEEPEN, an intensive multidisciplinary collaboration to oceanic discovery and management based in the Gulf of Mexico. To celebrate this 10th anniversary, we're releasing twin episodes of this podcast, as Part A has a particularly strong visual component. I originally contacted Dr. Sutton to examine a series of mysterious sea creatures that a Russian Deep Sea Fisherman had been pulling up and posting on his Twitter account. We'll post a link to the original article in the show notes so you can examine the images as we discuss each one. This isn't required, of course, but I'm sure my descriptive vocabulary will leave a lot to be desired. Part B returns to our regular format, the free-flowing conversation that you know and love. Without further ado, we welcome Dr. Sutton to the show.
Sure. My name is Tracey, Tracey, Sutton, Sutton. And I am an associate professor at the Guy Harvey Oceanographic Center of Nova Southeastern University.
And what is it you specialize in there?
I'm a marine ecologist, and I specialize really in deep sea fishes. So
the reason, that I approached you is that something crossed my Google feed, which is always dangerous if it comes off your Google feed, or Facebook or any of that stuff. I'm very skeptical of now as well.
Sure.
And it was on Gizmodo, so not even worse. But I just had to really ask somebody about this, and it sort of ticked off the UNIVI boxes of, if I'm curious, then I think just about everyone else in the world is going to be curious too. But I sent it off to you. I Googled by research, deep sea fish monster dinosaur mystery, like a whole bunch of Google words like that, and your name popped out. So you must be doing something along these lines, right?
Yeah, something monstrous. The fishes that I work with, that I particularly work with, many of them are in this picture series, and they're called deep-pelagic fishes. So they're things that live in the water column, usually deep. So there's actually a collection. Most of these things in this slideshow are captured on or near the bottom, but and my guess is that it was with a big Russian commercial trawl, because they do trawl very deep water. Yeah. But occasionally you catch midwater things as your net's going down or coming up. So it's actually kind of common to catch pelagic things that live up in the water offshore, like tunas and whatevers. They're basically the ones I work with are the things that live under tunas and billfishes or whatever. So it's not too uncommon to catch them all. So the deep pelagic fishes that I work on are some of the really kind of monstrous looking things. So they're the things with gigantic teeth, light organs sticking out, and huge mouths and crazy looking eyes and whatever. So that's probably why I popped up on there, because like Sport Fishing Magazine has 25 creatures that will give you nightmares, and they're pictures from the project. They like it. The project I'm working on now is called DEEPEN. So you can probably, in my email thing, you can click on DEEPEN if you care to. One of the most important things we're doing is to take pictures of everything we catch and then put them out in a gallery so that people can see what's down there. So I never mind pictures like this slide series. I never mind it at all because it goes to show people what's down there that people normally never get to see.
If I'm looking at the stats on this webpage, to catch up with the listeners, what's happened is a Russian fisherman, a deep sea fisherman from Russia. So anything from Russia is also crazy generally. So that's a plus. It's a 3.1 million views, so quite a lot of people have seen it. And it's filed under this deep sea fisherman posts his discoveries on Twitter and, oh my God, kill it with fire. Because some of them are absolutely nightmare-worthy, just unusual. Like on this show, we've spoken to people that are specialized in astrobiology and outer space and looking for aliens with SETI and that kind of thing. And this is aliens. This is as alien as you could get. This is something from Pan's Labyrinth.
Absolutely.
What are
you could make it up. Yeah.
What are some of the features that you can see generally in these type of fish, and how have they developed? Is this? Are we looking at nature's sort of trial and error here?
Well, the odd thing is that the deep sea, we think of it as a hostile environment from our point of view. So often there's a lot of people that want to get into astrobiology. One of the things they do, one of the paths they take, is to work in deep sea systems, because that's kind of what we can think of as being an alternative environment, completely dark, very, very cold, no sunlight, no grass, no plant life, whatever. So there are some, if you're talking about extreme environments or whatever, the deep sea is pretty extreme. And generally things are adapted to capture prey. So they live in an environment that is sparsely populated. So if you see something, you need to be able to eat it. A lot of these extreme modifications are a balancing act. So every time you see a species, especially something that looks weird, that species is a solution to a large number of problems. So every individual species, somewhere along the line of the evolution of that species, they had to solve a whole set of problems. And the species that we have now are the species that won, that came up with a successful solution. So in the deep sea, often what you see are fishes that have huge mouths but very small bodies. So hypothetically, the idea is that if you're in an environment where food is few, meals are few and far between, you can't have a big body because you can't really afford to metabolically. You'd have to eat a lot. But if you have a very big mouth, you have a much better shot at being able to eat anything you see. So often these, what we consider bizarre adaptations, are, specialty solutions to living in such what can seem to be an alien environment to us.
I read a really good book once.
Does that make any sense at all? I hope I wasn't just babbling there.
Yeah. Anytime we talk biology, that's a common theme that we hear, is that the expense that a creature has vollically has to be balanced with its ability to hunt. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Right.
So, and that's a common theme of what we see in these creatures. So what I'm going to do is link this article into the show notes. So people, if you're listening, you can go and click on this article and then let's go through. So the top picture here is kind of looking like, is the sort of the title one, and it's got kind of like a top layer of teeth and two big nostrils. Are you able to tell us a little bit about that one?
Right. Sure. So this is this fish is upside down, and it's a fish called a Chimera, which is a distant relative of sharks. It's actually its own order of fishes. So what you're seeing there is with the teeth, they're all fused because this thing swims along the bottom and usually eats hard-bodied prey like sea urchins or whatnot, the deep-sea sea urchins. Those teeth are actually all fused to the brain case, so it has a very strong jaw for crushing things. Those two holes you see, they're actually not nostrils. Those are that's basically the architecture of the mouth. The nostrils are actually up on the side. You can't even see them there. So you've got that great big snout, and all those little dots there are receptive organs. including those big pits. So it can swim along the bottom and sense the electric field of its prey, and then dig it out of the mud if it has to and crush it up.
Number 2. So if we look at this, you can kind of how about we do this where I try and describe it in like layman's terms, and then you can come in and like knock it out of the park with information.
That's a fantastic picture. I love the way they post it. It's called a frilled shark, and frill, Frilled. There was a very, very popular video that went viral a few years ago of some Japanese scientists that actually filmed a live frilled shark, which is rare because normally they would live so deep that if you caught them in a net, it would be dead by the time you saw it, like this shark surely was. But this frilled shark is one of the very oldest sharks, one of the most ancient of the sharks, and it's still, the fact that it's still here basically just shows that it's been really successful over millions of years of hanging in there.
And you can see the layers of teeth. Is this a descendant, from which other sharks are descended with the layers of teeth if they lose one and it gets reestablished?
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, this shark is somewhat unusual in that the teeth are spaced really far apart. Most sharks, the teeth are much closer, and normally you can only see the outer teeth. So it's quite common for all sharks and also rays and skates and whatever to have those multiple rows of teeth. What's unusual is that these are far apart, and there's so many that are exposed all at once.
Okay, number 3 here is kind of look like an eel from The Little Mermaid, one of the Flotsam and Jetsam ones. It's got a giant sort of eyeball and like dinosaur-y kind of teeth. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, this is actually a pelagic fish. So this fish lives up in the water column. It's oddly enough, it's actually a relative of tunas. It's in a group called the snake mackerels and the cutlass fishes. They have incredible teeth. Sometimes you catch these on deep long lines or whatever. But basically, it's a kind of a distant relative of tunas and mackerels.
Okay, I'm glad it's very distant, like a long way away from anywhere where we swim. Now, the next one is, it looks, I guess, like a terrestrial.
Some people do eat that. There's a fishery for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, this next one, that actually is a sea spider. It looks like one, and it actually is. They're called pycnogonids, and they're deep sea spiders that walk around on the bottom.
Okay, so that every picture we look at, the ocean just gets that 1% more terrifying. But now that they're sea spiders, how do they hang out down the bottom? Like it looks like a very delicate system. You imagine the pressures are great down there. What have they kind of developed to be able to crawl around?
Sure. Well, for one thing, they don't have any air-filled spaces, so the pressure doesn't, is not that big a deal for them. And you notice that they're basically all legs, almost no body. So they've basically given up having a thick body, and they just kind of lope along on the bottom until they come across probably like a small crustacean or something, and they'll grab it and bite it. They've got fangs, like a spider. So they actually live like a spider on the bottom.
Would these be venomous? I mean, it looks quite bright orange and yellow. That's
yes.
Typically stay that.
Yeah. It has. We never see them alive. Generally, when we get them in a trawl, they're always dead.
Yeah.
Usually, it's the temperature change that kills things on the way up.
Is there anything?
But yeah, they've got fangs.
With the type of venom that would develop in the deep ocean there. Is there anything different that you see from terrestrial creatures, or are they kindred spirits?
No, actually, it's very similar to terrestrial spiders. It's its own offshoot, but it is an arachnid, and it's somehow or another they just got ingrained in the deep sea.
This next one's probably my favorite. It looks the most like a fossil from a caveman art of nightmares. Two large giant fangs, black. It's quite small though, and like you said, mouth to body ratio. It's extreme.
Yeah. This is one of the fish that I collect a lot in my research. It's called a Thingtooth, and it's it's distantly related to the orange roughy. and it has a head kind of similar, but it's actually one of the main predators of the midwaters of the ocean, the deep midwaters. They live very deep, but sometimes they'll swim up near the surface at night to feed. And my guess is they really would eat almost anything they see.
I'm just pretty glad they're not 6 foot. That'd be
Yeah,
terrifying.
yeah. No, that's an average size for one. What's in that guy's hand?
Yeah. Okay. Hang on, wait. Scratch that. This is my favorite. This is the one that looks most like a Ridley Scott alien kind of thing. Big huge jaw, red eye. What is this thing?
This is actually one of the specialty fishes that I work on. It's in a group of fishes called the dragonfishes. So this one is called the rat trap fish because it has that big lower jaw, and most fishes have like a floor of the mouth, like a floor of your mouth. So just imagine if there were no skin between your lower jaws, it was just bones or whatever. So that's why it looks weird like that. And then the eyes are red. So this fish is kind of broken. It was collected in a trawl, so it's been snapped. It would normally be relatively straight looking, but it's kind of snapped a little bit. One of the key things about this fish is that the head is actually hinged to the spine, so that it can throw its head way back and it can drop its lower jaw way open, so it can present an enormous mouth, even tilting the top of its head back like we can with our neck. Most fishes can't do that. So it opens its mouth and then snaps them shut like a rat trap.
And what kind of thing is this looking for in the ocean down there? It
actually is looking for pelagic prey, particularly things that are red. So there's you notice that the eyes are red, and that's because this fish can see red. Almost all deep sea fish can only see blue. They can't see any other color of light. The reason being that generally the only color available down there at all is blue. All other wavelengths of light have been filtered out in the surface ocean, and the wavelength of light, the shortest wavelength is blue, so it goes the deepest into the ocean, hence the ocean being blue. So almost all of deep sea fishes can only see blue. They've given up the ability to see any other color. This fish is really unique in that you can't really see it, but you see that green dot?
Yep.
On its face?
Just below its eyes, yep.
Just forward of that, between that green dot and its eyeball, is a gigantic red photophore, so basically a red headlight. So this fish actually shines red light out from its face, and it can see red light. And that's incredibly rare. In the entire animal kingdom, there's just a couple of fishes, this fish and a couple of its relatives, and one beetle that can make red light. It's just incredibly rare to be able to make light that's red. And then it's even rarer to be able to see red light. So basically, this fish can swim around broadcasting its red light and seeing things, especially things that are red, they'll light up. But no other fish can see it do that. It's kind of like a burglar system or whatever. It's crazy. This fish is fascinating.
Just blew my mind. I just sat there, my jaw on the floor.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so just to reiterate, this is everything that we have on Earth is trial and error, right? So if it didn't work, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
And this is what this fish came up with, just incrementally.
Yeah.
Let's try. Its friend tried green light. No, it didn't work. Red light. Okay, this seems to work. Let's develop this trait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's crazy. Okay, next one. I think I was speechless at just then. I just couldn't think of what to say. So we are looking at something a little less fishy, more of a sluggy, gutsy, tentacly. What is this?
Right. Yeah. I vaguely know what these are, but in no way am I a specialist in this group.
Yeah.
And basically, this kind of verifies that most of this stuff was caught in the bottom trawl. These are called peanut worms, which is kind of a silly name, I guess, but you have to call something. Peanut worms, cyclunculin. So
sounds like a punk band.
Very distant. Yeah. Very distantly related to earthworms. So it's a worm.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one because I can't stop looking at this, but it looks like a fish with a mouth coming out of it. This looks like Ridley Scott. This is a Ridley Scott creation, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, this is another fish. This is probably what the Russians were fishing for. So if you ever go to a restaurant and see Grenadier on the menu, this is a Grenadier. So it's a distant relative of the codfish. So it's in that order, that cod order, the Gadiformes. And it looks weird like this because it's been brought up from great depths in a trawl. This is one of the few deep sea fishes that has a large swim bladder. Most of the pelagic fishes do not have a swim bladder because they swim up and down in the water column. It would do more harm than good. But the things that live near the bottom all the time, this shape is actually quite common to have kind of a long, tapered body that ends with kind of a little whippy tail. It's a very efficient design for cruising slowly along the bottom. And they have a big gas bladder, so they don't have to really swim to stay in the water. But when you bring them up, often their eyeballs are popped out like balloons. Their stomach is hanging out of their mouth because the air is expanded and kind of makes them look like a little balloon. Underwater, this fish would be quite beautiful, but when you bring it up in a trawl, it really looks awful. It's just awful.
So kind of like what would happen as humans if we like popped a hole in our spacesuit.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of imagination. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so different pressure.
Yeah, it would be pretty horrific.
Okay, so there's another picture, a different angle of that one. And then there's a top-down picture of something with a long tail. Is that the same? Are we looking at the same thing here? Or?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
Same, yeah, okay.
And as a matter of fact, it's probably the exact same fish. Kind of holding it up so you can see. So the eyeballs have been shot out of the head by expanding gas, and the mouth is probably like that because there was probably a stomach hanging out of it.
Yeah, okay.
Inside out. It's horrible.
Is this risky that this guy's holding any of this stuff? Is any of this venomous or spiny?
No.
Or is that something that doesn't work down that deep?
No. Oh, actually, well, now that you mention it, that very first fish, the Chimera,
yep.
It's also called a rabbit fish or a ghost shark. You'll see that term sometimes, ghost shark. It actually does have one big venomous spine on its dorsal fin. So it would be a fish that you'd want to be very, very careful handling it. And he's got another, the very next fish with the big green eyes.
Yep.
That's a Chimera. That's a beautiful fish right there. That's a much better looking specimen. So whereas the first picture was the fish upside down, this is the fish from the top down. And you can kind of see that big spine that's laid back on its dorsal fin.
Yeah.
Right behind its head, there's that one big straight looking thing right down the middle is a big venomous spine.
And what sort of venom would that have? Would that have something similar to sort of a stonefish or a cobbler, or is this could this be specialized deep sea fish?
It's not quite as bad as that. Not stonefish are just absolutely horrible and lethal. This would just be painful. It wouldn't be lethal like that.
Yeah.
Do you have sea catfish there where you are?
It's funny you say that. Just on the weekend, I went down to a river we've got here in Western Australia, a place called Dwelling Up, and I was swimming underneath the water, and there's some kids looking at catfish. So I borrowed their goggles and had a look, and I was like, "Kids, I think they're cobblers, and they're venomous, and you better stay away from them." These kids are about 8 years old, because you can see the eel tail in the catfish front, and but it was fresh water, and so I was getting on Google and looking. I'm pretty sure that was I've only ever seen them in saltwater. In fact, I got stung by one in saltwater, but I didn't know there was a freshwater specimen. But is that what you mean?
Yeah. So catfishes, usually it has either on the dorsal fin. Usually it has one spine, the first one, and also their pectoral fins also each have one spine, and very, very painful if you grab them and get stabbed with one of those spines. This guy would be like that, but it'd probably be worse because it's a much bigger spine.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. Actually, when I got stung, I stood on its tail, and the thing had like a flip motion, and then the spine went through the top of my foot. It was pretty intense. Yeah, they pour like hot water, kettle hot water that they boil just on your foot, and it's about the best feeling you've ever felt in
Right,
your life.
yeah.
It's like instant relief, and it's
If you don't treat that right away, it'll blow up like a balloon.
that was intense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing underneath is like I guess just a hermit crab. It looks kind of friendly, not too spiky.
Sure. Yeah, there's a whole series of deep sea crabs and also lobsters. So this may be what we would call a squat lobster. That they don't have much of a tail, but they kind of dig into holes in the bottom, and this would be the kind of thing that fish above it would eat.
Who doesn't love nice crunchy shellfish? Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that would probably be one of the better meals. Yeah.
All right. This is the one that looks a little bit different, I suppose. It's more of a cephalopody kind of, like, what is this? Peeled orange.
Okay, the purple thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the purple thing is a sea star. So basically a starfish. And there are a large number of absolutely beautiful starfish that live on the deep sea bottom. Stunning. It's odd they have color like this because, well, for one thing, they can't see each other, so the color wouldn't do any good for them to recognize each other. And there's no light down there that would make this look purple. It would just be a shade of gray. So it's just left over the coloration. And we see some that are brilliant orange, and some are white with what looks like chocolate chips on them. And, just any wild number of coloration patterns for these starfish, in an environment that basically is black and whatnot. So it's probably a leftover from a shallow water starfish that kind of made its way into the deep and then kind of went that way in its evolution, and it just kept the color.
And is that the same with the next one? It looks like a starfish with sort of tree branches and deep fried noodles off it.
Let's see. Well, it's close. It's called a brittle star. And these brittle stars are, they're pretty amazing because they're so active. They can really climb all over things. Each of their arms is radiated into these tendrils, and all of these tendrils move around like fingers or whatever. So these things often wrap themselves around something tight. So it's just a relative of our common starfish called a brittle star.
This next one is the classic example of what you said about efficiency, I guess, at the bottom of the deep. If we look at the design, well, first of all, what's this called? And can we look at some of the features here?
Well, this is a deep sea anglerfish, and it's called it's got a cool. Most of these things don't have a common name because it wouldn't mean anything. Hardly anybody ever sees them. This one actually has one. It's called the ghostly sea devil. It's a type of anglerfish that is it's fairly transparent. So most anglerfishes are jet black. This one stays transparent. It's got that tiny little eye. So with the fishes that live in the midwater, generally the deeper they live, the smaller their eyes get. Until you get near the bottom, and then all of a sudden fish eyes start to get very large again. But so here's a fish that would live, say, below 1,000 meters, down to several thousand meters. Doesn't have anything to do with the bottom. They're fully water column. And that silver bag that you see in the snout region,
Yep.
That's its lure. Yeah, so that thing would normally be out on the stalk, and inside that little silver bag is a colony of bacteria that produce light. It can control how much light comes out by kind of covering it with a membrane or opening it, but basically that's its fishing lure that glows, is that little silver bag.
And so that would light up the whole head, wouldn't it? We just got the transparency,
oh yeah,
clear skin, and that.
Sure, yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah. So that's another pretty keen adaptation. So you can tell it has a very flabby, tiny little body. So it doesn't swim around and look for prey because it would require too much energy. So it just sits still and turns on its little lure and then tries to eat whatever is attracted to that lure, something that's looking for some plankton to eat or whatever, would see a little pinpoint of light and go, ooh, I see something, and swim at it. And if this thing could actually consume it, then it would try to eat it. So it has that gigantic mouth. It's basically all mouth and stomach and nothing else.
I don't know if I grew up on too many Disney films, but every time you describe an adaptation and how it works and what it uses it for, I sort of think of assign a personality to these creatures. Like I'm like, oh yeah, he's a lazy guy. He doesn't like to swim around. He just switches on his light and gulps things that come. And
yeah.
And the next one looks particularly angry. There's a pair of them, and they're kind of warty, spiny.
Yeah.
Cranky.
Well, they're called lumpfish. LUMP, lumpfish. They're actually related to scorpion fishes, but they don't have venomous spines. They generally sit on the bottom, and they're just kind of blob along, eating things that live near the bottom. This is not a super deep fish. This is something that you would actually find in much shallower water. I guess they go deeper, but it's not your classic super deep sea fish.
The next couple kind of look like repeats of something we've seen. Is there anything there that you'd like to describe in particular?
Let's see. Well, you've got the fish that the guy's holding with the red glove.
Yep.
That's a wolf eel. So that's a common commercial fish in the North Atlantic. They do go deep, so sometimes you can get wolf eel in several thousand meters of water. But you can also catch these fishes fairly shallow, so it's kind of the thing about it that's unusual is that they generally like to eat lobster, so they can get really big. They can get to be 2 meters long and have very large, powerful jaws for crushing lobsters.
That explains his terrible dental work.
So
it's like chewing on lobster shell all his life.
Yeah.
This is like lower jaw jutting out. I've seen some people getting around London look like that.
Yeah.
There's like
sure.
Looks like a kidney with flowers on the top.
Yep. That's called a sea cucumber. So it's again, the sea cucumbers have really found their niche out on the deep ocean floor. So pretty much, anywhere on the deep ocean floor, sea cucumbers actually may be the most abundant animal life down there. They sometimes can occur in huge numbers. They just crawl along the bottom and slurp mud, extract whatever organic matter is in the mud, and then poop it out.
Are these the ones that have the poisonous darts that they spit out? They can spit out and harpoon fish.
They can, yes. Some of them do. Yeah, some of them have kind of poison glands that they can shoot out. So if something eats them, it would make them ill.
This looks like a repeat of the frilled shark.
Yeah, probably the same fish.
Yep, different, but that's kind of like a dragon. It does look like a big Komodo dragon with, the teeth.
Really does, yeah, it really does.
This looks like the underneath.
Yeah, like I was saying, this is very similar to fossil sharks. This is it's just amazing it's still around.
Would climate change affect these kind of things? Is that something that the deep ocean is sensitive to?
Most of these things are very, very deep. So the main thing that climate change would probably affect would be the food that rains down to them from above. So, the food web in the open ocean, you kind of think of it as like a field, a grass field upside down. So all of the grass, the base of the food chain, are these microscopical algae that require sunlight. And then that's eaten by small animals, the zooplankton, and then, it works its way through the food chain until animals get bigger and bigger. But ultimately, the food is always at the surface. So the things that live very deep, they either have to go up and get it, or they have to wait for it to fall down, usually after it's dead. So it's kind of this rain of food from above. So, you have things like sea cucumbers. They just feed on the mud. Whatever falls into the mud and decomposes leaves a little bit of organic matter, and they just do that thing. And then things like crabs and whatnot, they can probably catch falling food and eat it. And then the large things like these crazy-looking sharks and those grenadiers and whatever, they eat the animals that eat that falling food. So it's kind of an odd system. You're pretty far removed from the base of the food chain, when you're down at the bottom of the deep sea.
Next one, it looks like a sort of a stingray with a mouth.
Yeah, that's a skate. So it's the relatives of the stingrays. So of these fishes that look like rays, you have stingrays and you have skates. The stingrays are generally shallow water, and the skates are more deeper water. So that's the deep ocean is really the domain of the skates.
So the key to deep ocean looks like that it has a lot, like you said before, a lot less airspace inside of its body to create pressure.
Right. So yeah, none of these. So like these fishes, they're related to sharks. So and even that Chimera that we saw, none of them have gas bladders. That's strictly a bony fish thing. So these things have no gas-filled spaces anywhere in their body.
So pure, like if you look at the next one, it's like a big giant lizard with a snout.
Yeah. So, now this is a very odd fish to be in this series because it's not a deep sea fish. So they must have collected this at the surface, and it may have been associated with something. This is called a coronet fish, and it's actually something you can see on a tropical reef.
What's the reason for this large snout that it has?
Yeah, it's got. This is a big one. This is quite large coronet fish. They're actually voracious predators, which again is an odd thing to be out in the deep sea like that, because normally this fish is one of the real predators on a coral reef. They're fairly fast. You can tell it's a big muscular body, and it has the ability to open its mouth so fast it draws things in like a vacuum cleaner. So it's it's got that big long tubular snout, and those jaws will really shoot out, so they can kind of squeeze out all the water in their mouth cavity, and then open their mouth real fast and create a suction like a pipette or a vacuum cleaner. It's an odd fish to be in this series, so they must have collected it near the surface, and this thing just lost its way and was out in the open ocean.
The one thing that I'm glad that I think all these fish have in common is that I'm really happy they're not 6 to 8 feet long and hang out in Australia, because
right.
This is flat out everything that they try, every adaptation that is here is just would be horrific for humans swimming along at the top of the ocean.
Yeah, it really would. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these dragonfishes, 25 centimeters is kind of a big one, but the things that they feed on, landing fishes, 3 centimeters is kind of 3 to 10 centimeters normal size. So yeah, most of the stuff, at least in the water column, is well less than a meter. And then once you get near the bottom, things get bigger, but they also get really, really old. So a lot of these deep sea fishes, that are near the bottom, they could be anywhere from 35 to 100 years old.
We're going to break up the episode here as we enter the next phase of the conversation. So check out part B of this 2-part series with Dr. Tracey Sutton and his scientific adventures at sea.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening to the UNIVI podcast. To follow our series, please subscribe to our channel via iTunes, Beyond Pod, or the equivalent service. And if you particularly enjoyed the show, please don't forget to rate. For further information, news, videos, and articles, head to univi.com.au.